So today we're here to talk with Idahoans who are impacted by the situation in Afghanistan and those who are involved in our resettlement. We've heard from a lot of people across the state who are very moved by what's going on and who want to help and who want more information. And that's really our goal today, is just to connect our community, to help give you the facts, to help you understand the situation, and help you really hear from people who are directly impacted. I think you probably are here because you've been following the situation, but over the past month, we have seen conditions become unsafe for our allies and other vulnerable people in Afghanistan. That includes women, children, non-government organizational workers, journalists, activists, and religious minorities. And the painful situation has personally impacted many Idahoans who have loved ones and family members there and who served alongside our military colleagues during their deployment. Over the next hour, you're going to hear from people who are directly impacted and who are working to resettle our allies and other vulnerable people. So I'd like to introduce you to our panel. Please. So we'll be hearing from Julianne Donnelly-Zuhl. She is the Executive Director of the International Rescue Committee in Boise. We'll also be hearing from Naveed Musa. He lives here in Boise. He's a civil engineer. He resettled here with his family many years ago. We'll hear from Master Sergeant Robert Holmes. He is a Marine Corps veteran who lives in Kuna, and he is the quartermaster for the Veterans of Foreign Wars in Idaho. And you'll also hear from Zeze Roswama. He's the director of the College of Southern Idaho Refugee Programs in Twin Falls. So I'd like to give each panelist just a brief chance to introduce themselves and give you a little bit a better idea of who they are. And then we'll let each one share more deeply. And then we will get to your questions at the end of the hour. So Julianne.
Hello, I'm Julianne Donnelly-Zuhl, the Executive Director of the IRC in Boise. I have been working with our team to support refugees coming to Boise and to Idaho for over 10 years, helping everything that's needed to get lives going, from housing to jobs to long-term immigration status. And I'm super proud to be joining this group today.
Thank you so much. Naveed. I'd like to see here. Naveed, are you able to?
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Holly. My name is Naveed Musa. I'm a former refugee, moved to Idaho about 14 years ago. I'm an engineer. I work for a local company, and I have family and friends and relatives, and our Afghan allies in Afghanistan have been impacted for the events in the last few weeks. So I would like to I appreciate it to be part of this panel and provide any my personal thoughts and my personal story related to these issues.
Thanks so much for being here, Naveed. Master Sergeant Robert Holmes.
Okay. I think we might be having some technical difficulties. I think he accidentally got bumped off.
Oh, okay. Well, shoot. Well, hopefully he'll be able to join us later. Let's go to Zeze. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Zeze Roswama. I am the director of the College of Southern Idaho Refugee Programs here in Twin Falls. We do a refugee resettlement. We provide all services. We are the only resettlement agency in Southern Idaho. I came to this country as a refugee myself. In 2001, I started my life in Salt Lake City, and 7 years ago, I moved to Twin Falls for this job.
We're so glad that you did, Zeze. Thank you. We do hope to be joined later by Master Sergeant Holmes, who did serve in Afghanistan and has colleagues still in contact with who he served alongside as guides and interpreters. So, but for the start, we're going to go back to Julianne, and Julianne's going to help us understand more about the process and how Idaho involved in that process in terms of refugee resettlement and our current situation.
Thank you, Holly. So I'm going to take a few minutes to give some nuts and bolts information as to how our systems work, where we are right now, how we got here. I really hope that the bulk of the space, though, is really for Naveed. So I'm giving an introduction and then turning it over to Naveed, who has the most important things to say after I finish the mechanical things. So first, I want to describe how it is, what the process is for people to come to Idaho. I'll be describing who will be coming, what we know so far, what the vetting process is, and some information about our supports that we provide for the long-term integration of people in our community, including some information about housing. So starting with how people make it to the US. The process of deciding how many people come to Idaho and every other local area in the US is a very deliberate one. It's a careful one. It's a collaborative one. It's not unilateral. We are not just handed a number. We involve a lot of parties in figuring what is an appropriate scale for our community, what we can sustain and do well. It serves no one to bring folks here and to not give them really good support upon arriving. So how do we do it? We're in close conversation with our local community partners. So that includes everyone whose systems are directly impacted by new families in our community. So our schools, our medical systems, our local governments, our law enforcement. And in that conversation, which is a formal once quarterly meeting discussing who we hope come to our community and what types of systems will be impacted, we also invite in our members of Congress, our entire Idaho congressional delegation, and our governor. We are excited to welcome with the multiple law enforcement partners that we already have participating in this consultation process. Additionally, the Idaho State Police, if they would like to join us as well. The next quarterly consultation is actually the day after tomorrow. So it is an ongoing process that is live. Who are going to be coming to Idaho? We have traditionally welcomed over the life of the refugee program, which has been going since 1975, over 46 years in Idaho. We've welcomed between 500 and 1,000 people a year on average. Who we are going to be welcoming this coming year, so starting in October and stretching through the year, are going to be about 400 individuals, people, families, 400 individuals from Afghanistan. By resettling families, we typically see about half of the total number of people who are coming are children. So probably about 200 children. This number is one that will start in earnest in October and won't be arriving all at the same time. So if you're thinking that a concrete number of families will all show up at the airport at the same time, they won't. They will be staggered and arriving in ones and twos, where they will be carefully welcomed by our team. I do want to share with you that our partners that lay all the groundwork to make sure that this program is safe do a lot of careful vetting of the people who come. It's a multiple federal agency system. It involves many layers of intelligence that are being carefully looked at for each individual who's coming. It doesn't just happen once. You don't get one security clearance. For a person to make it through this process, their name and their background are checked over and over and over again. And if for any reason the person has been found to not meet the strict criterion to come into this country, their access is denied and it's not appealable. Not a resettlement agency, not a family, no one can turn around that denial once it's been given. And I would emphasize that the people who are coming from Afghanistan are people who are connected to us, all right? They're not just random people. They are people with active relationship, support, and employment of the United States government. Last couple of nuts and bolts things. I want to reference and acknowledge that we are living in a very constrained housing market. That is true. I will tell you that we have a lot of experience in getting people into stable housing within this market for the 46 years that we've been operating in Idaho. We are also looking at how we make sure that our housing supports in this particular moment are still solid. So making sure that we have very good transitional housing put together as well as permanent housing. Within this, we are adapting. We're going to be trying a few new strategies, increasing types of supports that we get to families through mass reservations at hotels, mass meaning a handful and not huge. And we will be trying a small pilot of host families supporting folks in transition while we're securing permanent housing. This is a new strategy. We expect it to be small and only a few volunteers or sponsors at the beginning, but we're trying to use everything that we can to make people's experience be good. Finally, I want to emphasize that when families from Afghanistan come, they're not going to be left alone, right? There's going to be a robust support system around them, as there are for all of our arriving families, which includes support to get folks needed English, skill building, and especially skill building towards employment. People arriving as refugees, families from Afghanistan are going to have a lot of support to get into housing quickly, get into employment quickly, my apologies. And I should note that Idaho employers are hungry for people to work. Our phones are ringing off the hook with people who are looking for workers at solid wages higher than we've seen in years. This is a good moment in our economy for people to come. So finishing the nuts and bolts, we'll note the questions that we're getting in the chat and answer them at the end of the program. And in the meantime, I'm going to turn it over to Naveed. Thank you, Naveed.
Thank you so much, Julianne. I would like to start with giving a little bit of background about myself, my family's story, how we ended up in Idaho. Also, how my family, relatives, friends, people, Afghan allies have been impacted with the sudden withdrawal of United States from Afghanistan. And also would like to talk about a little bit maybe about from my own perspective, how beneficial it is for this country to be welcoming to refugees and how long-term effect it might have in our economy, in our society, and so on. So to begin with my background, I'm originally from Afghanistan. I was born in Afghanistan in 1990s. We moved to Idaho in June 2008 as a refugee from Moscow, Russia. We were refugees in Russia due to war. We moved to Boise, Idaho with my family, my mom, a single mom, my brother and 2 sisters. So a family of 5 in June 2008. Just one thing to note, I personally believe we are blessed to have come to Idaho and specifically to Boise. It is a beautiful and a great place to be, and I have moved to other states for work and to visit families and relatives, but I've always come back to Boise, and I would not replace Boise and Idaho for anywhere else. to continue back on my story, when we came in as a refugee in 2008, it was one of the worst time economically, but immediately we started, me and my brothers, we started going to CWI to get our college, started in our college, and my two sisters started with their junior high and high school. I graduated in 2014 with bachelor's degree in civil engineering, and immediately got a job with federal government, and afterwards in the private sector. My two sisters, they both graduated with degrees in computer science, and they are working right now for top 500 companies in the United States. My other brother, he is a scientist. He currently works in California on one of the pharma companies to develop on pharmaceutical to develop drugs based on the research that he does. It has been a very solid and very great experience with the support when we came as a refugee in 2008 that we received from the Idaho community, from the Boise community, specifically from the resettlement agencies. They had the structure and the backbone to be able to guide us and help us with the basic needs. For example, how to get enrolled in school, how to get enrolled in university, how to get good English classes. For example, for my mother, to learn English and so on. There were resources, and we are immensely thankful to them to all those volunteers who helped my family. Now, to come back a little bit about how this sudden withdrawal impacted my life and the lives of my siblings and the lives of many Afghan allies in Afghanistan. I have family members that worked with the United States military, with the United States or European non-profit organizations. And I also had family members who worked for the previous government, in the previous government military. They were soldiers, and also they worked in the NDS, which is the National Directorate of Security. And also I have friends who are part of the society as far as students, specifically girls and women that have been immensely impacted, and they have their hopes and lives and wishes and goals have been shattered. One great example that I can provide is I had a friend who was pursuing her medical degree in Afghanistan, and she was also the captain of the cycling team in Afghanistan, women's cycling team. And she had her teammates, about 20 or so, that they were, the day before the Taliban took over Kabul, they were practicing and they were cycling, they were going to university, studying, preparing for their exams. The next day, they cannot do that. So that's just the next day they cannot go to school. The next day they cannot even dare to get out of the house. So that's how this is how impactful it has been for people in people's life. It has immensely impacted. Coming back to my relatives who are commandos in the Afghan National Army, who fought the Taliban and the terrorists and the ISIS and all those people. At the moment, they are being searched for. They are hiding. They cannot get out of their houses. They're not even living in their houses because they know where they live. So they're scattered all over the city, all over Afghanistan. Their lives are in danger. For them at the moment, it's about survival, nothing else. They are just trying to survive. And this is true for majority of our SIVs, or the way we call it, basically those who were translators, interpreters with American, with US military, and who also were involved in somehow or shape or form with anything related to United States, whether they were non-governmental organizations and private companies that they worked for Americans before. That is the same true for those people. Their lives are in danger, and sooner or later they will be seeked out. They will be captured, prosecuted, executed, and so on. I think to me as an American, I became citizen in 2013. I have when I started working for the federal government, I took the oath to protect the Constitution of the United States and serve this country. And one thing that matters to me, that as an American, it is very important that we keep our promise. When we make a promise, we keep our promise to the people. It is very important for our country in a long term. It is one of the core fundamentals of this nation, or that we should uphold our promise. This country was built based on people coming and looking for freedom total, for whether it's freedom of religious, freedom of speech, freedom of association, or anything you may call it. I believe that our Afghan allies now need that support from us, that we should uphold our promise and we should welcome them with open arms. Those are the people who have literally risked their lives, the lives of their families, their kids, for our mission, for our goals, whatever they were in Afghanistan. We need to not have the intention to somehow bar them from coming in. And I have full faith in our system, in our government, that they will do, as Julianne mentioned, they will take the right measures to process and vet all eligible individuals who are eligible to come to this country. This country is as dear to me as Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is as dear to me as United States. So I do not differentiate between them. To come back a little bit, to continue a little bit on the part of what are some of the long-term impact. There are some concerns, as I've been reading on the news and media, that, and this has been going on for a while and it's never ending, but is concerns that somehow we are bringing these Afghan allies are coming into the United States. Somehow they will have some economic, they would somehow be some economic, have some economic burden in our economy. I would like to give an example. So when we came in 2008 as a refugee, my family, we received 6 months of rent. That was $650 per month. And the third month, we moved in late June, beginning of July. In September, I got a job in Micron as a fab operator. And afterwards, I worked and I also went to college, and same goes for my brother and the siblings. So we all got our professional degrees 2-3 years afterwards. During when, let's put the 6 months, the first 6 months aside, but post 6 months, we all were contributing back to the economy directly by paying taxes. And at the moment, our family, just individually, we pay each year over $100,000 in taxes back to our state and to our federal. So if you compare the proportion of the benefits we received from the federal government to compare to amount of taxes that we have been paying since then, or contributing back to economy. Sorry, I'm an engineer, so I think in that manner. And so we did not even receive a quarter of what how much we pay in taxes in a single year from the federal government. So I would like everybody to understand that these kids or these families that are coming to United States or to Idaho or in Boise specifically, they are going to be they will turn into a backbone, a fabric of our society. They will be contributing to our society in economically, they will be contributing to our society in any shape or manner that you and I are contributing right now. They will be a useful member of our society. We do need people to come to this country because this country do need people who align with our values and who are going to be beneficial for our long term. I think one more thing to kind of emphasize on our promise. Our US and Master Sergeant Holmes can probably provide more information on what was his experience, but those people who fought for us or with us in Afghanistan, we give them hope, and they were hoping that they are not going to be left alone in the manner we left them alone. For 20 years, they fought with us, they believed in us, and the next day we abandoned them. Now I do understand that at one point we had to leave Afghanistan, but the way we did it, it was not fair to anybody. It's not fair to me as an American, or to us as an American. It's not fair to them. I believe we should work with our government, with our leaders, to hopefully evacuate and bring more of those people who believed in us and who sacrificed everything for us. I would like, at the end, if you have any questions, I would like to take any questions you may have. But I would like, at this point, I would like to let Sergeant Holmes take it from here and share his experience in Afghanistan and how he served the United States and served Afghanistan, and what's his experience with the people that he worked with. Thank you.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Can you hear me all right? All right, cool. I just wanted to make sure. Yes, my name's Rob Holmes. I was a Master Sergeant in the Marine Corps. I did 23 years in Iraq, Afghanistan, primarily Afghanistan. I did the advisor mission, which was a big, huge component in training the Afghan military and police in doing their role. We went over there, and I'm not sure if you guys, sorry, I had technical difficulties. If she showed those pictures, I don't know if she showed the pictures or not, but if she did, it kind of just showed where I came from in terms of going over as an advisor team. Oh, there's my other pictures. So this is where I deployed to. Which the gentleman sitting next to me on the stairs there, that's Ramin. He was a local interpreter. I don't want to dox him and tell where I was at and what I was doing and where I was from, in terms of him. So he got out of country, but his family is not out of country. And that was back in 2010 is when I was over there. We came out in 2011. So, we promised them, if they helped us, that they would, our country and other countries would help these guys get out, because they are the targets of just kind of, Naweed was kind of saying, they're the most vulnerable in terms of the people that we have to worry about, because, they've got they had bounties on their heads, high-priced bounties on their heads to take them out, because they're the one thing that was connecting the U.S. and the Afghan forces together. And without them, we couldn't have done this mission. So, we kind of owe it to them to get them out and get their families out, because there's nothing worse than you being separated from your family, living in another country, and your family's stuck there where, you have a very extremist organization taken over. And that's something that, it kills us as the veterans of the community. And by the way, when she introduced me as VFW, I'm not representing the VFW. I'm just representing me as a veteran. Okay. So I just want to throw that out there. And the fact that, so that's one aspect of it. After I was done doing that, I became an advisor and instructor. Basically, everybody that was in the Marines that was going over as an advisor role after 2010, I was instrumental in training them. And that's why in 2014, we were able to transfer that over to the Afghan Afghanistan forces, and they were doing well and holding their country and doing, they were doing their part, and then, but it still comes back to, this is just like Noweed said, this is how we left them. And it was kind of a bad situation that we left these guys in, and these families in. And I had personal friends that not only over in I have no idea what happened to them. Because it's a country that's third world. It doesn't, I mean, they're finally getting cell phone technology, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can contact us back in the States and let us know how they're doing and things of that sort. So right now we're left blind to know if all those guys I worked with, if anything has happened to them or their families. And then of course, we also have people back here, US that we call them Tajuman, right? That's the term for we say in Afghanistan, but that means interpreter. That they are U.S. citizens that went over there, helped, and came back, and then they still have families there. So I mean, we left these, we left them with a promise. And one thing, before I, turn this over to whoever comes on next, the Afghans is the one that gave us a saying, and they used the term shona bashona, and it means shoulder to shoulder. And we used to use that saying every single day when I was there. We'd talk, and it'd be like, yes, we're shona bashona. And we were proud to be standing side by side with the Afghans. And now we've left them high and dry, and they're on their own, and it kills us, people that put all our time and effort in terms of building Afghanistan up to what it was. So we worry about these families, and we pray for these families that they hopefully they can get out of there, and we can reunite these families that, just like Noweed said, the people who worked, whether they're from the US or they're over there, and they were able to get out, but they weren't able to get their families out. We need to get these families back together. You know what I mean? And then, I mean, that's just, I mean, if you want to know from the service aspect, that's what I see. As well as, you had different roles over there, but if you were an advising role like I was, you never made a better connection. These guys, I'm going to tell you how loyal the Afghan people were. The border police I was with protected me with their lives. And they told me that they would never let a Taliban, try to kill me. They would die before they would let them kill me. That's how much dedication these guys had. So I just want to throw that out there and kind of throw my piece into that. I hope that kind of sheds some light into the perspective of not all veterans feel this way, and not all military, but I'm going to tell you that when people like myself who had a vested interest in Afghanistan and were there for that purpose to help that country, it hurts us. And I really, to this day, everybody that I talk to that's an advisor, it really, really, it's killing them not knowing, whether one of our friends' families or it's a brother to me. They're my brothers and sisters over there, and I don't know what happened to them. So, I'll throw that out there, and I appreciate you guys let me speak. And if you guys have any questions for that, let me know, and I'll gladly answer some questions.
Thank you so much, Master Sergeant Holmes, for sharing your perspective, and Julianne and Naveed. This has been really great to hear from everybody, and I'm excited to now move to Zay over in Twin Falls at our resettlement office at the College of Southern Idaho.
Thank you very much for everybody that spoke before me. Very powerful. I would say that for me, who came as a refugee myself, and I'm doing the refugee resettlement work, it validates what I do every day. It's not easy work, but when I hear people like Sergeant Holmes, who served our country, and vouching for the Afghan refugees, it gives me morale, courage to continue fighting for these refugees that we serve. I was just thinking about what to talk about today, and two questions came in my mind. One was, do we have a moral responsibility to help Afghan refugees? And I think people that spoke previously have really answered that question. And my answer before I heard what they had to say, both Naveed and Sergeant Holmes, my answer was yes. But that answer was based on a family that I've been trying to help reunite with the husband who is here in Twin Falls. This husband has been in our country for the past 5 years, tried everything for the whole 5 years to try to get his family back with him, his wife and 3 kids. And the last minute, when they were almost there, they had interviewed with the US Embassy, and they had done all the medical screenings, all the security screenings done, and they turned in their passports so they can put in their visas to travel here to Twin Falls. And all of a sudden, the craziness happened in Kabul. There were no way they could come. Their passports are with the US Embassy. They spend many days outside the airport trying to get on a plane, and they wouldn't. And they saw the US military leaving Afghanistan, leaving them there. And now they are hiding in their home in Kabul, fearing for their lives. Definitely that question of saying, do we have a moral responsibility to help Afghan refugees? Yes, but also for each of you who is here, who does not have any connection with a refugee family, to base your answer to a particular story. But think about, you were born in this country. Think about, if you are an immigrant, you came to this country somehow, you didn't give God anything to give you that opportunity to come to this country, enjoy what we enjoy here, the peace, the security, the freedom, and so on. Based on that, those are other human beings like us. They didn't choose to be in that situation. So, and I'm sure, and I'm hoping that each of you would say to this question, yes, we have full and moral responsibility to help Afghan refugees and other refugees that are out there now. And also be grateful for that you're enjoying the beauty of this country. You didn't pay any price to enjoy this beauty, everything we enjoy here in America. And in order for you to feel that in order for you to be grateful, you should feel this moral responsibility that you have and do something about it. There's many ways you can do something about it. The easiest way, it would be just to contact one of our resettlement agencies. If you live in Boise or in Twin Falls, find the resettlement agencies and get involved. There's many ways we can use you to support this work that we do. Again, without the community support, I always say this work is very complex. We cannot do it alone. We just need everybody to help us. And I don't see even this type of situations like Afghanistan to end very soon. I mean, the only way that refugee issues would end in the US or around the world is if we have peace on the planet. Now, is that even close to be achieved? I don't know. I think not. So the only thing that we can do as community members is to try to get involved and help the ones that they are here close in your backyard. I mean, how can you exercise this? How can you get the opportunity for you to accomplish that that moral obligation that you have? You don't have to go overseas to help. There is refugees in your backyard that you can help. Now, the second question that came to my mind was, how can we help? I'm going to point a few things of how we can help, and we probably will discuss this further in questions when they come. But one of the best things to get involved is to be a part of a refugee success story. Every refugee has where they started life, when they came to America. And if you follow every refugee, you would find that they have their success stories in their own ways. And all I'm asking is, be a part of that success story. How can you be a part of that success story? It's only if you're a part of the refugee resettlement work that are rebuilding lives. I mean, when you follow things that happen to refugees before they get here, I lived those things. They're very horrible, and they only us as one community. I like the way the communities these days have now come together and trying to show their support, and I'll talk about that support that we are getting around southern Idaho. But it's giving me hope to continue fighting hard and making differences in people's lives. So get involved with your local refugee resettlement. The second thing is, as citizens of this richest country on the planet, and given that the U.S. view itself as a promoter of freedom, democracy, human rights, the most generous country on the planet, and the most humanitarian country on the planet. Given all of that, it's really something that me personally, who became a U.S. citizen after, since I was born, I didn't have a citizenship of any country. I'm proud of that, and I want to be a part of it, that we should be considered as the greatest country on this planet, which we are. And let's not let that slip. Let's call our federal representation, our state representation, I mean, our leaders, the state level, federal level, and let's ask them to continue supporting refugee resettlement in Idaho. We've been very successful since, as Julian mentioned, since 1975 until now, and it would be a failure if people on this call, or people that are listening to us in the communities, or people that will go on this website and download this and start listening, if they don't do anything about it. Well, we need your support, and the support that I'm asking today is call leaders at all levels, community leaders, church leaders, Muslim leaders, local government, state government, and federal government, and call them to provide every tool that we need in order for us to help these refugees succeed in this country. And the third thing that I want to mention is, which is very powerful for a refugee. Many of us, even people in Afghanistan, for the past 20 years, they felt not welcomed. They lived in their lives of fear every day. They're counting days every day for the past 20 years in the case of Afghanistan. In other countries such as the Congo is the last 30 years that people have lived with fear. And when they come to America, they have hope that the fear would end the moment they step their feet in America. And then the only thing that you can give is welcoming them, show them love. That's all. They will do the rest. Believe me, they will do the rest. But they cannot succeed if that fear continues with them. They cannot succeed if they don't feel welcomed in the communities they live in. And also, the worst thing that you can do for a refugee, and that's what you should avoid, is not to welcome them. When you see them, do your best and welcome them. And they will do the rest to succeed in this country. Me and my family came in this country. My dad, my mother, 4 sisters, 4 brothers. We were settled in Salt Lake City. That's where many of us, my mom still lives there, and some of my siblings too. But we fled the Democratic Republic of Congo after months of the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. Imagine that. I was a young boy at that time, and just imagine surviving mass killings, and then you find exile in a country a few months after close to 1 million people died in 90 days. Imagine what type of life that would be. The country itself didn't even have any means to support its own people, and now we were there trying to survive. And I would say that I'm very grateful that America rescued me from that life, horrible life. I mean, there's many things that I cannot even repeat that I've witnessed. Now, every time you're involved in helping refugees, think about us, think about Naveed, think about what we are saying today, because I do believe that when you help someone who is hopeless, you get blessings one way or another from the Almighty. And if you want blessings, if you want to bless this country, please make sure that this country continues to support the refugee resettlement.
Thank you so much, Daisy. I want to make sure we have time to get to questions here before we wrap up.
Okay. Right. Just one few things that I wanted to mention. I'm just happy that during this time we are getting so many phone calls from supporters of Afghan refugees, and I wanted just to list a few quotes from those messages that we received. One was, "We cannot abandon our allies." I mean, this is powerful, and I think we've learned that today. And then they said also, they risked their lives to protect the U.S. interest in the most dangerous country in the world. I would love to employ a refugee from Afghanistan. When are they coming? I am organizing a support group to fundraise on behalf of Afghan refugees. Accepting Afghan refugees is to protect the most precious right of all, the right to live. I would like to start refugee resettlement of Afghans in Idaho Falls. I mean, these are messages of love, of hope, and I hope it continues this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your stories, Daisy. That's very powerful. So I would like to move into our Q&A section, and I do appreciate each panelist. Thank you so much. This has been so good to hear from each one of you. You bring such valuable perspective. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who attended today, and to our partners, Agency for New Americans, IRC, CSI Refugee Programs, Idaho Office Refugees. I just appreciate everyone coming together and having this conversation. So I do want to share with you, before we get to the Q&A, just briefly, I will share some resources. I've been so thankful of how many people have reached out wanting to help. And so we have put together some resources for you. As Julianne said, the resettlement will happen in stages. So not every volunteer opportunity will be available right away. Sometimes these things take time to set up. So I do hope you know that if you reach out to volunteer and we don't have an immediate thing for you, it's not out of lack of appreciation or need. It's just sometimes it takes time. So I do appreciate that. What we've put together is a Google form, and you can find a link to it in the chat. You can also find it at idahorefugees.org/blog. And this form will allow you to give us your contact info so we know who you are, that you're interested. And then it goes into various ways that people can be involved. So if you have a specific strength, a specific resource or interest, then you can indicate to us what that is. And then the Idaho Office for Refugees and our 3 resettlement partners in Idaho will be the only ones that have access to this information. And we'll be able to reach out to you when the right opportunity comes up. So we're deeply grateful for that. If you would like to give financially, that's also very helpful. This work has required a lot of resources being shifted, and so financial help is greatly appreciated, as well as household items for new families. Agency for New Americans has actually created a wish list on Amazon to help giving, so you're welcome to check that out too. And if you're not sure yet what you want to do, but you want to stay connected, I do welcome you to visit idahorefugees.org. We have a newsletter that includes updates from our partners. We have a blog, so updates will be posted there. And there's also several upcoming ways to get involved. These are also on our website, on our calendar. There's a Run for Refugees this Saturday. IRC's annual fundraiser is coming up at the end of the month. And next month, Agency for New Americans will have its annual gala. So there's some ways to get involved. Like I said, idahorefugees.org has all this information for you. Okay, I would like to turn it back to Julianne for a few minutes to address some of the questions that we've had. So thank you everyone for your great questions.
I'm going to try to be concise and respect for everyone's time. The questions that have come up are largely around housing. Yes, to the question of whether housing is subsidized, housing is more expensive currently than it has been in many years. Parts of the programs that we operate are to cover housing expenses at the beginning with the goal of quickly getting people to be independent. Those particular federal funds have not adjusted for cost of living or market increases in years and years. So the federal funds alone are not enough to do what we do. We raise private funds to be able to pay for what needs to be paid for. And we also work very closely with every family to help them create an economic empowerment plan that has them ready to be paying their own bills by the time our assistance ends, right? So we are helping them evaluate, okay, who's in the family who can work, what wages need to be earned in order to make this household budget balance. It's a very intense process of education and participation from the families. But I will say that people are incredibly resilient and pick up the reins and go, sometimes very, very quickly. There was a related question about whether if someone becomes involved in the program as a host providing transitional housing, if there's any defraying of the costs involved. And I would say, yes, we pay for housing and for food and material that are needed. I would note that the idea of hosting people in home is still in its very early stages, and it's less logistically complex to host people in hotels or in spaces that are self-enclosed. And thank you for additional comments in the chat for additional resources. Any additional questions? Oh, I saw in the Q&A ticker that there was a question about whether the 400 individuals would be coming right away or would be spread out through the year. And yes, it would be spread out through the year. Sorry, that might have been already answered.
Thank you, Julianne. We also have a question about other options for people in Afghanistan who are vulnerable right now, but who don't fall under some of these categories that we've been talking about, such as SIV or Priority 2. Would you be able to speak to what some of their options could be to arrive to safety or come to the US?
Tara, would you like to take that, or I can as well? I think there is the anticipation that folks not in P2 or SIV categories would be going through a vetting process to determine if they could come as refugees. and that and therefore access all of the same refugee support systems longer term. Not sure that everyone would be able to meet those evaluations, but I think that is the ambition.
Julianne, I'm going to keep you in the spotlight for one moment. Someone did want to clarify if the 400 was statewide.
That's the statewide number. That is not just IRC's number.
So yeah, we have Zay's organization in Twin Falls. We have Agency for Americans in Boise and International Rescue Committee in Boise. So those are our 3 resettlement partners do this work. Brian would like to know how we can donate items like furniture for families once they're settled into housing. I would love to hear more from Zay and Julianne about furniture donations and kind of just there quickly.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. So we have a list of items that we have to have when we are setting an apartment or a house for a refugee. So what I would say, and that's what we do here in Twin Falls, is we would have them call the refugee center, and then they would give them that list because the list changes. It depends on family size, and we would like to receive those items when we have a housing for them, so that we can just go and set up the apartment right away, just to resolve the issue of storage at our office. So the best way to donate anything is to call us at the refugee center, and we'll give you instructions how we can do to collect those items and set up the place for our refugees.
And I would layer with that interest, if you could enter that into the Google form, that would make it easy for us to manage. And since this is all lifting, moving, hauling, installing, that's a fair amount of labor. We would love it if you would be able to hang on to your items until we have a housing set up, so that we can move the items directly into the apartment without having to manage storage and inventory in between.
Thank you. I know we're running out of time here. Someone had asked about offering their rental for housing. And I know that we do have housing opportunities like that we are exploring. So if that's something you're interested in, that is a feature on our Google form that you can indicate. So please do check out that resource. I'm so grateful for the interest there. Well, I really appreciate everyone being here. Thank you so much to our panelists. You really put yourselves on the line to be vulnerable like this, and I can't tell you how much that's appreciated. And I think it's really connected our community, and I thank everyone for taking the time to be here. Before we go, we're going to reshare that link with our Google Forms, so it's easily accessible to everyone. And then we will post a recording onto the Idaho Office Refugees YouTube page. So if you would like to go back and share this with your networks, we would really appreciate that. Let me just reshare here so you can grab this link. This will take you to our Google form. And like I said, our blog will continue to have updates. And if we didn't get to your questions, feel free to reach out to me directly and I will be happy to work with you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day. Keep on the good fight.